7.5 minutes.
Thank you, Las Ciancurla. Las Ciancurla, the bill before the House and the question that will be put to the Irish people is whether or not to abolish the Seanad. I would say that this is a false choice. I have yet to meet anybody who believes that the Seanad should be kept in its current form. As a new TD, I was shocked to find out at how senators are elected and dismayed at the functioning of the Seanad. If the referendum is defeated, and I hope that it will be, then I will be strongly advocating for the total reform of the Seanad. Indeed, I am proud to be co-sponsoring a bill which aims to do exactly that. The real question, Las Ciancurla, before this House is whether to abolish the Seanad or whether to reform it completely. Now, on this question, there are sensible arguments on both sides. It is true that some effective democracies have just one house. It's also true that many effective democracies have two houses. But what is absolutely clear is that those democracies with one house have an effective house and an effective system of local government. And it is here, unfortunately, Las Ciancurla, that I believe the government's proposal fails. Because we will be asking the Irish people to abolish the Seanad before we reform the Dail and before we reform local government. Now, the Seanad is deeply flawed, but it is one safeguard against a broken Dail and a broken system of local government. Imagine, Las Ciancurla, you were sitting on a leaky boat. The person in charge of the leaky boat said, "Look, I'm going to fix all the holes in the boat, so why don't you take the life jacket off and throw it overboard? When this boat is fixed, you're not going to need it." You'd be an idiot to take the life jacket off. What you'd say to that person is, "Look, fix the boat, then let's come back and let's have a conversation about whether or not we need life jackets in the future." So in considering the future of the Seanad, there are two questions we must ask. First, do you abolish the Seanad before you reform this House? And secondly, if we reform this House and if we reform local government, then is there or is there not a meaningful and proper role for an upper house in this country? On the first question, do you abolish the Seanad before you reform and fix the Dail? To me, the answer is unambiguously clear. You do not. To me, Las Ciancurla, we shouldn't be considering abolishing the upper house until we fix this one. So how do we do that? Now, the government has pinpointed at least two areas for Dail reform: strengthening powers of key committees and establishing sectoral committees to scrutinise the work of government departments. Both reforms that are much needed and both reforms that I would welcome. And if that's the right thing to do, then let's do it. Let's do it whether or not we abolish the upper house. And while we're at it, let's reform the whip system. The government backbenches are full of bright, passionate TDs who want to bring their expertise to bear, but they can't because they are not allowed to say what they think when they disagree. The government must stop hiding behind the guillotine. I looked at the information making the speech Taoiseach. Here's what I found. From the start of this Oireachtas to this March, 52 out of 90 bills have been guillotined. That's nearly 60%. And it's the sensitive bills that are guillotined. The local property tax, the finance bill, the emergency measures bills. They're the bills that are guillotined. Let the technical group speak on order of business. Sure, it's a diverse group. And sure, it comes in for criticism. But it is the second biggest group in opposition. And changing standing orders with 2 words would allow the technical group comment on the proposed order of business in the Dail. That has been consistently refused for a long time now. And let's get rid of the ridiculous rule that means that no TD on any side of the House is allowed to propose an amendment to legislation which incurs a charge on the state. It's antiquated, it's ridiculous, let's get rid of it. We can make these changes and more, and we can make this House do what it's meant to do. Allow this House do what it's meant to do. Allow this House do what it is constitutionally obliged to do, and that is to hold the Cabinet to account. I don't think any of us would suggest on any side that this House, as it stands, fulfills its constitutional role. Now, the government has correctly pointed out that many small countries have unicameral systems. 5 of the top 10 democracies in the Economist's Democratic Index are unicameral. But many of these systems boast safeguards and rules which the Irish system does not. In Denmark, 2/5 of MPs may petition the Speaker of the House to delay the final stage of a bill by 12 weeks. Very useful.
2 minutes remaining.
In Sweden, all legislation is considered by committee before it goes to Parliament. Finnish municipalities control healthcare, education, infrastructure, and levy 2/3 of all tax. Article 29 of the Finnish constitution is very interesting. Here's what it says. Members will follow justice and truth in his or her office. He or she shall abide by the constitution, and no other orders are binding on him or her. No other orders. That'd cause havoc in our whip system. Now, the government position is clear. It says, trust us, abolish the Seanad, and we'll fix the Dail. But unfortunately, there is no greater proof of the problem with that ask than this bill itself and how it's been brought in. There was no consultation in the House. There was no analysis provided. And there was no pre-legislative input by committee. Surely, if this was a signal as to a new way for us to work, we should have done it with this bill. Taoiseach, what I would say is, if you want to discuss abolition versus reform of the Seanad, I think there are many valid opinions around the House and indeed in the Seanad on that. But what I would say to you is, please, reform the Dail first. Make this House work. The Seanad has nothing to do with that. Reform local government first. The Seanad has nothing to do with that. What I would say is, until we fix the holes in the boat, let's leave the life jacket on. Thank you, Lasken.
Thank you, Deputy. And now call Deputy Joan